The other day, as I was watching the Senate hearings concerning Kash Patel, I watched Senator Josh Hawley, and he kind of troubled me in his attempts to include all religions under those of domestic terror, those who would be watched or protected from domestic terror, I should say. While I agreed that all houses of worship should be included in that, I was a little bit concerned about Josh Hawley's presentation and asking an articulation on the facts. And so he also mentioned a policy, something I wasn't quite sure of, a policy about whether the FBI was targeting houses of worship. I wasn't really sure what he was talking about. I think I found it. If I'm incorrect, please somebody send me the original, but we'll find it. My name is Dr. L. Welcome to the Breakdown. Here we try to break down all things law enforcement related. And if the FBI and other enforcement agencies of the U.S. government and or state or whatever are doing research or doing some type of suppression work towards those of homegrown violent extremists, that I'm all in for that. I agree with that, and I want to investigate and break down what exactly it is that they're doing and what we can learn and how we should grow from these efforts. However, what concerned me the most concerning this was Josh Hawley's presentation of this, and it just didn't sit right with me. So we're going to play a little bit of Josh Hawley here to try to get an understanding of what he was talking about and listen to his language and all that. We're going to speed it up here, 1.25 speed here. Playback speed 1.25.
Crime and violence, vandalism, arson against churches and parishes all across the country. And then, of course, last week, Charlie Kirk, who said, "I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith," was shot on a college campus. Let me just start with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Is the FBI, and I appreciate the tremendous work the FBI has done in this investigation, is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely, and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence.
So he's already attributing it to Christian violence. Let's listen to that again. I want to be very particular in what he's saying here. He's relating it to Christian violence.
Work the FBI has done in this investigation is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence.
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely, and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that, if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you've already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate. Who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that. We're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that together?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic.
I was going to say 20 is not a big number. I mean, one is too many, but...
let me just turn to the broader question here of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence. Let me just give you a few stats that I'm sure that you're all too familiar with. Every person of faith in America certainly is. Major report this past year found that there have been over 400 instances of hostility against churches in the United States in the year 2024. Those included arsons, bomb threats, shootings, and firearm incidents. Another organizational report found that there were 500 attacks on Catholic parishes alone. So that number 415, that's all Christian churches in 2024. Another organization found 500 separate attacks on just Catholic parishes since May of 2020. Of course, we had the Covenant school shooting, the Annunciation school shooting in Minnesota, where 2 children were shot dead as they were praying in a pew. Here's my question.
Before he gets to his question, I've got a question too. Are you including Josh Hawley black churches in your analysis of those of anti-religious, anti-Christian, because it keeps throwing that in, the anti-religious, anti-Christian violence? Are you including black churches in this, right? In your analysis of this? So this is going to be important here concerning the Catholic faith.
What is the FBI doing to take on this rising tide of violence that seems to be motivated by anti-religious hatred?
What are you doing when they start burning down black churches or targeting African Americans? What are you doing about that, Kash Patel?
Specifically, sir, we've had 60 anti-Catholic hate crime incidences reported to us that are being investigated. Publicly, I can tell you we have 5 hate crime investigations with anti-Catholic bias ongoing currently in the states, in the cities of Kansas City, Louisville, Houston, Nashville, and Richmond. That's what I can say publicly. But any ideologically based attack against any faith, as a man of faith myself, will not be tolerated, and the full resources of the FBI are committed to all of it.
Are you investigating any domestic cells that instigate or encourage or fund or in any way support attacks on churches or other houses of worship?
Senator, you raise an incredibly important point that most people don't look at. I've always said we follow the money.
He follows the money. I don't know what that means. Are you investigating these cells? We follow the money. So they don't have any money, you're not investigating them. But anyway, so he said, Josh Hawley said, are you investigating any domestic groups, cells, organizations, etc., that would target these houses of worship? Which I agree that those places should be gone after. Those institutions, cells, groups, whatever you want to call them, should be gone after. I agree with that.
And whether it's terrorism or attacks based on ideology or attacks on institutions of faith or people of faith, someone's paying for it, and we are reverse tracing those steps. We are not stopping at the perpetrator themselves. We are reverse engineering to hold those accountable in our investigations to who funded them and knowingly funded them, and we will bring the appropriate steps against them with our partners at DOJ.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We look forward to hearing reports on that progress. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let me just ask you this in the same vein, Director. Since the Dobbs decision, the FBI has advertised $25,000 rewards for information on attacks on abortion clinics. Will the FBI similarly offer rewards for information on attacks of houses of worship?
Yes, when it is appropriate. The rewards are any reward, whether it's an attack on a house of faith or on a homicide or whatever, is determined by a group within the FBI, but we will work with them to make sure that rewards of monetary value are put out for all ideologically based attacks.
Good. You just rattled off some statistics, which I was glad to hear about the number of investigations you have open, the incidents you're tracking against Christians, against houses of worship. Let me just ask you if you consider designating a senior official as a liaison to houses of worship, to Christian and other religious organizations, to publish metrics on investigations and arrests related to church attacks, church threats, vandalism, arson, etc. Will you?
Mosques, synagogues, temples, all those too, right?
Set up a system for liaising and then reporting so that everybody can see, this committee and the public can see just how many attacks we're talking about, just what the level of threat and violence is and what the FBI is doing to combat it.
Senator, you're speaking my language. The private-public sector partnership on this specific issue, just like the other ones we've talked about, is equally transformative to finding those involved in these criminal activities. And with your assistance, I would ask you if you're able to identify someone who's an expert in that area, we will work with them. We will take their information, because as great as the FBI is, we're only as good as the information we can get, and we don't have the reach that the private sector does in some of these areas.
Very good. Happy to help on that. Let me ask you about something specific to the FBI, because sadly, as you know, the FBI, when it comes to anti-religious animus, has been part of the problem before you got to this agency. And I know that you remember the infamous memo generated by the FBI that attempted to recruit informants in houses of worship, in particular in Catholic parishes. Your predecessor testified when this information, I just want to reiterate, this memo became public because of a whistleblower. It was not turned over to this committee. It was not disclosed to this committee. In fact, we were told it didn't exist, and then a whistleblower published it, showing that indeed the FBI had recruited informants, attempted to, into Catholic parishes. Your predecessor then testified, sitting right where you are today, he testified that this, I'm going to quote, was a single product by a single field office, end quote. That was a lie. Because we then had additional whistleblowers come forward and say, no, actually, multiple field offices contributed to the drafting of the report. And indeed, there was a second anti-Catholic memo that the FBI generated. And indeed, those memos were distributed to over 1,000 FBI agents across the country. You know all of this. You and I talked about it when you were here for your confirmation hearing back in January. I just want to follow up and see, have you been able to determine how this memo got written and distributed? How is it that the Federal Bureau of Investigation came to be recruiting informants in Christian churches in this country?
I'm still baffled as to why this is a problem. just hearing this from the first time when I heard it yesterday, I'm like, why? Okay, if there are informants there, why is this a problem? Is it because informants don't go to church, don't have a faith? I don't understand why this is a problem. We know. I sat through a training not long ago concerning the rise of white nationalists and their adaption of Odinism, the ancient Nordic religion of Odinism. You know, Odin, Thor's hammer, and all of that. So if they don't have a problem infiltrating, investigating, and arresting, using informants, etc., to get those people. Josh Hawley might not think that that's necessary, but I do. To get those people, then I don't have a problem with them going anywhere else. They're not interrogating or bashing or targeting churches or whatever because of whatever. But these people often have religious ideologies, ideations. This, part of some people's religion is racism. This is hard to believe. This is so clutching your pearls and whatnot. But this is true. I don't know why this is a problem.
Senator, we did dig in, and we are doing our investigation simultaneously with Congress. And just to put it in perspective, we provided 700 documents on the Richmond Catholic memo specifically to this committee, whereas my predecessor provided 19 pages. And not only that, but we looked into how the source recruitment structure at the FBI was conducted during this time. And we made adjustments and permanent fixes to ensure that sources are not put into houses of worship unless there is an actual ongoing criminal or international terrorism threat. We will not use sources at this FBI to investigate and cull information just for the sake of culling information in houses of worship.
Has anybody been fired for this?
There have been terminations related to this and resignations.
Good. There need to be, because if this is going to be standard at the FBI, nobody can trust the FBI. You want to talk about violating the First Amendment? This has got First Amendment violation written all over it. It's one of the most.
Not saying you can't go. Listen. That's enough of that. So I just don't agree. I don't think it's a violation of the First Amendment. Kash Patel said, well, let's go over to this here. So he's talked about the Richmond memo. We caught that in the last few sentences in which Kash Patel was speaking. So I wanted to go over to that for a second here. I'm trying to put this on the screen here. Let me take this off here and stop screen. We'll do a PDF here. Try to get this. It's difficult to pull everything up here at the time here. Let's see. FBI race. I think this is it. I'll do this one. Nope, that's not it. Okay, so this is the unclassified for official use. You can't see it. I'm highlighting it. I can't see it here. So this is executive summary. Actually, what it says is the interest of racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists in radical traditional Catholic ideology almost certainly presents new mitigation opportunities. You can't see my highlights here, but this says executive summary. FBI Richmond assesses the increasingly observed interest of racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists in radical traditional Catholic or RTC ideology almost certainly presents opportunities for the threat mitigation through the exploration of new avenues for tripwire and source development. In other words, these people have already sparking interest. My understanding, and this is not the case, please somebody correct me. I'm sure somebody would try to. So they're already. They did not just go to houses of worship and just say, "Hey, this is what it is," right? We just want to just infiltrate your organization and develop spies and whatnot and develop assets. No, there were reasons for it. FBI Richmond makes the assessment with high confidence based on FBI investigations, local law enforcement agency reporting, and liaison reporting with varying degrees of corroboration in excess. In making this assessment, FBI Richmond relied on a key assumption that RMVEs, racially motivated violent extremists, will continue to find RTC ideology attractive and will continue to attempt to connect with RTC adherents, both virtually via social media and in person in places of worship. Indicators that would cause FBI Richmond to revise the judgment or confidence levels in its assessment include increases or decreases in RMVE suspects, attendance at RTC or traditionalist Catholic places, houses of worship, increases or decreases in RMVE subjects, activities, or social media platforms. Let's see. Lost my place there. Social media platforms and forums maintained by or frequented by RTCs or the public, distancing a prominent RTC or traditional Catholic personalities or institutions from RMVE ideologies. FBI Richmond assesses RMVE interest in RTCs and is likely to, over the next 12 to 24 months, in the run-up to the next general election cycle, cycling the overall RMVE threat picture while also creating new opportunities for mitigation experts. During this same 12 to 24 month period, our overall RTC community is likely to remain relatively stable or show modest growth, providing RMVEs a persistent Catholic-oriented base with which to interact. FBI Richmond did not include an analysis of alternatives in this product due to the quality of the source information and lack of yada yada yada. Right. So then it goes on here. Right. This is available online. This is an 11-page document. I'm obviously not going to read all of this, but it goes down through what the FBI did, what their sources of contact, their conduct was, and how they developed their sources and their liaisons and who they dealt with. Right. So this is an opportunity here, right? So they identified a few different houses of worship here and under opportunities, where they can go to deal with and to try to figure out, who's doing what, how they're getting your information and all that, right? And part of this was now what I don't know is if this was the I just want to make sure that this was the original, and I don't see Patel's name on here. But anyway, so regardless, I don't see a problem with any of this, right? I just don't see the problem with any of this, right? So what Fox News did was what they tried to do. Remove this here. Fox News tried to say it's anti-Catholic bias, right? Let me see here. I got to pull it up. And this says DOJ report did not find evidence. Those who crafted memo were directed to find link between racially motivated violent extremists or any specific religion or political affiliation, right? So they were just following, as Kash Patel said, the money, following where the leads went. Wherever you find people at, that's where you find them at, right? Fox News correspondent David Spunts says lawmakers are demanding answers from FBI Director Christopher Wray, right? Josh Hawley spoke about his predecessor on the memo to infiltrate the Catholic Church on a special report. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has been exonerated by a Department of Justice review, found that investigators did not intend to target traditional Catholics as potentially racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists. In other words, they didn't say that just because they're churchgoers that they're automatically involved with this racially motivated violent extremists, right? But there had to be a connection between that. The Justice Department Inspector General review noted, however, that an analysis incorrectly conflated and investigated subject religious views with the alleged domestic terrorism activities. Findings from the 120-day review, which was handled by Justice Department Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz and ordered by Congress, were outlined in a letter sent to members of Congress on Thursday in FBI Richmond, Virginia internal memo titled "Interest in Racially Motivated Violent Extremists," right? Is that the one I had here? Hold on. Is this the one I had here? I just want to make sure. Interest in. I look for this internal memo here. I couldn't find it. And title interest, I'll continue to look for it here. Was leaked in January 2023, drew instant criticism from Republicans who demanded immediate answers from the agency. According to the Inspector General's report, the memo, which was dubbed Richmond Product, was circulated among an investigation of potentially violent individuals. Hold on a second. I got to get a better copy of this here. Hold on. All right, I want to do a better copy here because I want to be able to highlight stuff here. So, according to the Inspector General's report, the memo has been dubbed Richmond product, which circulated among an investigation of a potentially violent individual who was identified in the report as Defendant A and has since been arrested. So, in other words, they did what they had to do. They went to the places where he was at, assuming Defendant A is a he, and and made the arrest during following up with investigative leads. I don't see the problem with this. The Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters building the scene in Washington D.C. Oh, that's that. Though Defendant A was not been identified in though defendant A has not been identified in the report, the dates and details of the case match the case against Javier Lopez, who was indicted on federal weapons charges last month in June. So I think it was this guy Javier Lopez. Now I know what y'all are thinking there. Javier Lopez, how could this guy be a violent white extremist, right? And yes, it's true that many persons of Latin descent hail from regions in Central and South America are, surprise, surprise, brown skinned or certainly not white. But according to this book here, Defectors, The Rise of Latino Far Right and What It Means for America by Paola Ramos. So this book in particular details how many of these persons from Latin America are coming to the U.S. and adopting white supremacist ideologies. Even in his congratulations speech, Kash Patel said, he alluded to uh, I'll see concerning the congratulations speech in which he congratulated himself and the rest of the FBI and of course Donald Trump by fiat there, saying that the FBI had done such a great job in catching the suspected killer of Charlie Kirk. Referenced I'll see in Valhalla. Valhalla is obviously part of Odinism. Why would a guy, a brown skin, send out a message towards concerning Valhalla on Charlie Kirk, who was a Christian? That made absolutely no sense. But there is a link here between all of this, and it's right between religion, whether it's Odinism, whether it's some Catholic traditions, to seek out those who would do us as Americans harm. Right. So this is the case of Javier Lopez, right, who was indicted on weapons charges last June. The FBI have been monitoring the suspect since 2019 due to his extremist views on social media, according to the Inspector General's review. The review stated that the suspect expressed neo-Nazi rhetoric. Javier Lopez is expressing neo-Nazi rhetoric and described himself as a Catholic clerical fascist. The FBI said he wrote in a letter to a family member that he needed to build guns, explosives, and other forms of weaponry in order to make a total war against the satanic occultist government and the Zionist devil-worshipping bankers who controlled it. The indictment against Lopez did not mention the church he attended or that he was monitored ahead of his arrest in November 2022, when a search of his apartment uncovered Molotov cocktails, firearms he was not allowed to possess. Lopez was on probation at the time after pleading guilty to a federal felony vandalism for slashing tires. Now, when you go over to, I typed in Javier Lopez and arrest, FBI arrest. It says Henrico man sentenced to over 8 years in prison for illegally possessing Molotov cocktails. It's my assumption that this is the man that we're speaking about. Henrico man was sentenced today to 8 years and 1 month in prison for possession of destructive devices. According to documents, in August 2020, Javier Luis Lopez, 25, paced through his suburban Henrico neighborhood wielding a knife that he used to slash the tires of a man belonging to a neighbor whose political views he disapproved. When the police officers located and arrested Lopez, he violently resisted, attempted to gain control of a knife, and physically assaulted the officers. After the arrest, investigators searched Lopez's residence and located over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, more than a dozen high-capacity magazines, rifle parts, and machine tools and equipment. All firearms related to related items were seized following his 2021 plea agreement related to federal felony vandalism charges. After Lopez's release from prison in 2022, investigators recovered 8 Molotov cocktails, destructive devices with styrofoam added to the gasoline mixture inside, creating improvised napalm. Located near Molotov cocktails was a box of 9mm hollow point ammunition, as well as the defendant's attempt to 3D print the final piece of a 9mm handgun build kit he had purchased anonymously online. Eric S. Seipert, U.S. Attorney for the District of Virginia, and Stanley M. Meador, Special Agent in charge of FBI's Richmond Field Office, made the announcement after sentencing by U.S. District Judge David J. Novak. The U.S. Attorney offices and FBI Richmond Field Office thanked the Henrico County Police Department and Commonwealth's Attorney for their assistance in the program, right? So if this is the person, there is no picture of him. I wanted to get a picture because I wanted to show that these people, according to Paola Ramos, that these people think that they are part of the white ethno state, white nationalism, right? This is what they think. And, whatever's going on in their heads, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. And what I think that Josh Hawley, this is me opining on this, is that there is a refusal to follow these people no matter where they may go. These people being white national ethno terrorists, racially motivated, violent extremists. This is what and who they are. This is what and who they are. So why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? Well, let me put this on the screen here, that I think that these people, including Josh Hawley, don't want to target these types of individuals. Well, let me put this on the screen here. Share screen. So this comes from the Daily Beast. No, it's taking forever here. What is up with this? Bondi's DOJ censors showing who commits political violence. Let me close some of these tabs here. My thing is slowing down. Sorry about this. My computer's slowing down here. I don't want it to slow down. I want it to speed up, right? Bondi's DOJ censors. Now, this is Pam Bondi, right? This is Pam Bondi. This is her, right? This is Pam Bondi, right? These are some of the things that she has tried to get past, right? Pam Bondi's, the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney General, forced to backtrack after Bonker's hate speech statement. So she's against hate speech when it comes to Charlie Kirk, those who would criticize him. They want to get people fired, all this kind of crazy nonsense. And believe me, I've spoken about, the unfortunate passing of Charlie Kirk should not have happened, but we got to go after the individuals who are causing it, no matter who they are. And I would say, no matter where they are, right? Churches should not be off limits in my estimation. So this is her and what she believes in. You can go over to TNR and read that, right? The New Republic. Nothing to see here. The 2024 study is no longer accessible on the DOJ website. Pam Bondi's Department of Justice has quietly deleted a study showing that far-right attacks outpace all other terrorism and domestic violence extremism. All others. Far-right attacks outpace all of them. A June 2024 study on domestic extremism by the National Institute of Justice, a research agency under the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs, began by noting that militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, violent extremism has increased in the United States. This was going on since Jeff Sessions, since they gutted that department over there, their section over there, right? And it's just been on the rise. Nobody's watching, nobody's checking for them, and now they don't want them to go into churches where they know these people are. They're religious. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism, it reads. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamic extremists. All this talk about we got to stop the, it's the radical leftists, and the president of the United States did that AI thing, and it's all over, after Charlie Kirk was brutally killed, which I don't support at all. It's the far left radicals. It's Antifa. It's no, the number one, according to the DOJ, was far right white nationalist white supremacists. That's who's doing it. The paper goes on to state that no single profile accurately captures the characteristics of the individuals who commit extremist and hate crimes, citing data from 2 NIJ databases. The study was on the OJP website until around Friday, when sharp-eyed social media users noticed that it had been replaced with an error message. The requested page could not be found. The deletion was first reported by investigative reporter Jason Palladino. The entire 13-page report can still be accessed on an archived version of the web page. This was just the other day. Amongst all this talk about we got to get these left-wing extremists and Black Lives Matter extremists, and we got to get all these different people, right? Because they're the one who did this to Charlie Kirk and all this. They did all this, right? But you go over to the website, and this is what you see. You know, the requested page can't be found. Now this comes from the paper, so I was curious as to maybe they put it back. Okay, let's just see. Stop the screen share. Stop screen. We'll go over to the website right here. Share screen. Here it is. Office of Justice Programs. Home. This page, the requested page cannot be found. You don't know what you're talking about. They don't want to admit it. Homegrown white domestic terrorists are the number one threat to homeland security. During my doctorate program, I had to take I took 2 classes about this. They are the number one threat. Hard targets, soft targets, all that, right? So this is what we're dealing with here. Let's see, take that down. So should we, I'm asking you all, should we go after these individuals who are doing this type of thing, right? So we're going to leave this off here. Let's see. Sometimes you got to love the internet here because things you think that they're gone, but they're not, right? Okay, that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But anyway, this comes from the Wayback Machine. So if you're not familiar with that, which I wasn't, it's going to live there, right? So what NIJ, National Institute of Justice Research, tells us about domestic terrorism, right? So as you can read through all this, militant nationalistic white supremacist and violent extremists has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other terrorism and domestic violence terrorist extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamic extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In the same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. All right. So here's what's important here: the characteristics of extremists and individuals who commit these crimes, right? So these are the 2 databases that they talked about: Profiles of Individual Radicalization in the United States database, and and this project yielded the Bias Incident and Actor Study. You can pause this or actually go over here and read about it yourself. It's only 13 pages. Shouldn't take you very long to read. Let me see if I can make this a little bit larger here so you can see it. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So here's what here's the characteristics, right? Here's this says here, the characteristics, right? How do we know who these people are? Well, one of them is diversity of beliefs. Although it's not uncommon for a particular ideology to dominate the public discourse around extremism, but the 2 databases indicate that U.S. extremists and individuals who commit hate crimes routinely come from across the ideological spectrum, including far-right, far-left, Islamist, and single-issue ideologies. These ideologies break down into particular movements or sub-ideologies. For instance, in 2018, Pyrus data identified extremists around the world with several anti-government movements: Second Amendment militias, the sovereign citizens, white supremacy, eco-terrorism, anarchism, the anti-abortion movement, the QAnon conspiracy, and others. The prevalence of particular movements can ebb and flow over time depending on political climate and law enforcement priorities. This should be a priority, but at no point in recent U.S. history has one set of beliefs completely dominated extremism or hate crime activity, right? Diversity of behaviors. They do all different types of things. Diversity of characteristics. Let's see. What else? Military experience. When according to current stats, individuals with military backgrounds represent 11.5 of the total known. This is interesting language here. Total known extremists who committed violent and non-violent. This is the total known. We don't know how many of them are there. Right? FBI released a report in 2006, stating that these people would try to infiltrate law enforcement and the military, trying to get training, etc. Differences in violent extremists between militaries and veteran citizens, implications of transitioning out of the military service, longevity of terrorist plots, how domestic terrorists use the internet. So this is all about this. Entering and exiting white supremacy in the United States, hate as an outcome. Interesting read. So when they follow these groups, and for example, in this Javier Lopez situation, or excuse me, Xavier Lopez situation, right? When they follow the money, follow the intel, do their due diligence, and they find out that these people are involved in Odinism. They find out these people, okay, maybe they're involved in Islam, they're involved in anything else, or if they're involved in some type of radical traditional Catholic organization, would it not be prudent to go over there and seek them out and try to get those individuals? Try to set up the whatever traps and tripwires, whatever other language they use to try to find these individuals, to stop them before they commit any type of acts of violence, maybe even to de-radicalize them. Maybe they can use the clergy in the church to de-radicalize these individuals, let them know that Jesus isn't about this, he's about love and peace and joy. Maybe could that be something we should be doing as members of the FBI and Homeland Security? Is that not something that these officials should be doing? So I don't get this, but what I do get is that these people don't see it as a problem. It was so much of a problem that even after taking it down, after Charlie Kirk's murder, it still hasn't been put back up, despite articles being written about it. I'm not the only podcaster who's spoken about this. It's a problem and it's an issue. We got black churches on the lookout. We've got HBCUs on lockdowns and very concerned because they think somehow, for some reason, that those people over there, that the brown folks, the black folks, had a hand in Kirk's demise. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. And what's up with these Latinos, according to this book here, which I highly suggest you read, Defectors, The Rise of Latino Far Right and What It Means for America. I suggest you all read that. What is going on with this, right? Hispanics for Trump and all this kind of stuff, right? They don't like you. But listen, sooner or later, it's going to be the find out of the previous F around, right? So let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. This right, wrong? What do you think about this? Should the FBI, Homeland Security, or any other agency try to use whatever methods in order to find these homegrown extremists? What are your thoughts and your opinions? Hit me in the comment section. Till next time, much love and peace. Oh, if you want to send me a patch, you can send me a patch. Man, I just did this about home loan. If you want to send me a patch. Let's see here. Hit the like button on your way out, and you can send me a police-related, corrections-related, law enforcement-related patch. LMH Consulting Services, PO Box 3034, Waterbury, Connecticut 06705. Much love and peace.